Do people in Canada have cable, like other people?
We keep this up in the playoffs. I don't care.
And at Chili's. Is it a Chili's? At Kyle's?
Achilles.
Finally.
You don't know that?
Fuck you! Get this guy the fuck out of here!
Alright, well, coming in at number 5, I got Anthony Stolarz.
Now! Jets are winning the cup!
Thank you for watching and listening. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 86 of the NordCast. It is Tuesday, January 7th, 2025. I am your host here, Nerd97, joined with Jack. Jack, how are we doing? Still at home, not in college. How we doing?
Doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. Good. It's a great Tuesday night, just past holiday break. What is unfortunate, though, is I was looking at my school calendar for my last, 5 months of high school, and I literally only have, 12 days off during
Flies by.
Yeah, the grind is back for sure. All right, we got some stuff to talk about here today. First off, the United States has won the World Juniors. We got two Americans here who are very, very happy with the results. Jack was thrilled in the chat.
Yes.
Gotta say, he was a very happy camper with the USA beating Finland in overtimes. Teddy Stiga with the overtime winner. It was a terrific game, terrific tournament by the United States. Never a doubt, right? They went down 3-1 to Finland. I was like, oh, crap. I'm going to get invaded in my comment section. But then they came back and tied up the game in the second. Teddy Stiga ended up with the overtime winner to win the gold medal for the USA. We'll go into some of the players who we thought were really good in this tournament. But, Jack, how does it feel to be champions again?
Yeah, it was awesome. That was an awesome game against Finland. And, I love the World Juniors tournament. And I was hyped up. You saw my videos blasting Freebird on the porch in Florida. Might have woke a few people up, but I don't care. That was awesome.
Yeah, Jack was absolutely thrilled in Florida playing the. He sent us 4 videos of him just bopping his head on a balcony, spamming Freebird out. Man, it's always a great tournament. It always is. Yeah. And with the United States winning the last 2 years, it's been a very enjoyable tournament. It's the first time ever they've won back-to-back, ever. And it feels like with the team that's coming back, they could very well win another one, to be honest with you. They could very well win a third one in a row. I can't tell you the last time a team has won 3 years in a row of the World Juniors. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's happened before. But, again, it's very rare to see nowadays. So, again, congratulations to the United States. Jack, who are some players who really impressed you? They don't have to just be on the States, but who are some guys that, you thought were really good in this tournament?
I said ASP, Axel Sandin Pellikka. He was really good the whole tournament. Literally from the first 5 minutes of the tournament, he was just awesome. So there's a defenseman that was awesome. And then on the United States, Cole Hudson, oh my gosh, he looked awesome.
Yeah.
Breaking ankles every time he had the puck. He was fun to watch. And then Zeev Bynum, he was really fun to watch. And then Ryan Leonard, the way that kid uses his body is just crazy. He's going to be a hell of a player for the Capitals. And same with Hudson. They're both Capitals prospects, so.
Yeah, they all look so good on that United States team. Wasn't ASP your MVP pick for the tournament?
Yeah, he was, yeah.
He was the best defenseman.
Yeah.
Had Sweden got into the finals, I think that you would have
more points, opportunities, and
yeah. Pellikka honestly carried Sweden in that tournament. Finland. I said something so simple on TikTok. I said, Finland completed a crazy upset on Sweden, and the Finns lost their minds on me. And I'm like, dude, and listen, I said crazy upset. I didn't even give it thought, but it's every freaking year. Every year, I always upset some country with the World Juniors. 2 years ago it was Czechia. Last year wasn't even that bad. It was pretty tame last year. Last year I upset more Canadians than I did even anybody else, which is not unusual. And then this year I upset the Finns. I don't understand. And then what's funny too is I made a video saying Czechia played a really good game against Canada. Canada played terrible. And I have all these Czechs coming at me in the comments. I'm dude, I'm literally giving you guys credit. What do I need to do? And it's just because they don't understand us. Like, they speak Czech. They don't get it. All they're doing is just posting middle finger emojis and the laughing emoji and the crying emoji. I'm like, literally, like, you don't even understand what I'm saying, so why are you yapping on my post? Like, I don't understand.
That's fine.
Anyways, I got really off topic there with that, but I want to go back to some of the players in the tournament. Felix Unger-Sorum for Sweden, as well as that too, looked really good. The goalie for Canada, Carter George, was also really good as well. There wasn't a lot of positives for Team Canada, but Carter George was definitely one of them. As well as that too, I really thought that Eriks Matejko really looked like he could be a decent player as well for Team Latvia. And then Felsbergs, I think is his name, was the Latvian-born goalie who really looked impressive as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there were a lot of players that really impressed me in this tournament. But I cannot wait until next year when the USA wins the third one in a row and Canada.
Yeah, home ice too, Minnesota.
Oh, hell yes. Did you know that Sweden, Canada, and the USA are going to be in the same group?
Yeah, that's crazy.
That is going to be a bloodbath.
It's really weird how the standings played out this year.
Yeah, it is. It is a little weird how that goes. But again, like, it's going to amount to like 3 very good matches. I'm pretty sure it's Canada, United States, Sweden, then Switzerland and Germany. Those two teams, Switzerland and Germany, are going to get freaking destroyed.
Yeah,
like, they're going to get destroyed in that group. And then the other group is just so meh. Like, they got Finland and Czechia, and then it's like Denmark, Latvia, and Slovakia. So like, it's going to be like Group A is going to get all of the attention, all of the watch, and then Group B is just going to be mid as hell. Like, Group B is going to be so unbelievably mid. So yeah, that's the World Juniors. Nothing too much really to say there. I really wish Carter could have been here because he could have gone on a absolute tangent about how
he definitely would have.
Yeah, how Canada did not look good in this tournament and about how corrupt they were. But yeah, that's about all we'll talk about for that. I do want to talk about the Winter Classic. Jack, before we get into the overall numbers of the Winter Classic, how was it watching your team lose yet again another outdoor game?
Well, as you guys know, diehard Cup fan. So really cool seeing the Blackhawks play at Wrigley for the second time. Terrible on ice product, however. I mean, that was just ridiculous. I saw like Taylor Hall was on the verge of tears, saying like the fans don't deserve this, and it's just a whole nother mess. Like, I don't even know like what you do at this point. Like, you fired the coach. The offense has been better since Sorensen's come in, but I mean, it starts at the top. I think you got to look at Davidson. Like, this was a team that wasn't supposed to be like last in the league again. But yeah, I mean, that was just a brutal Winter Classic, and Mrazek looked terrible. And yeah, no, just defense is non-existent. So
yeah, not a good game there from the Blackhawks whatsoever. I really did not like they didn't look good from the start. Like, they looked tired, not even 10 minutes in. Like, they just and it's because the team is just not good. Like, I think it's because people don't realize they're still in a rebuild. They're still in the thick of the rebuild. Why do we keep giving Chicago outdoor games though? Like, I
know they're done now.
Yeah, like I can't see them giving them another one until at least when they're contenders.
Yeah,
like,
I don't even think they'll do that now. Like, they should have waited to do this game for another 3-4 years.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I think it's because they need to keep the Wirtz family happy. But again, at the same time, like, come on, like, are we being serious right now? Like, I don't understand it at all. And again, like, the viewership just was not good either. It dropped below 1 million this year, and I'm like, why do you think that is? Because Chicago is bad and St. Louis is mid. Like, you didn't give him an enticing game. You didn't give him a game that's like, oh, it's close, it's fun, it's entertaining. No, this game was over literally a period in. Like, it was over
pretty much.
Even if it was 2-1 after the first period, it felt like it was really over. Even
you
like
knew the Hawks were not going to win that.
What was that?
You knew the Hawks were just not going to win that game.
Well, yeah. At the same time, you knew they weren't going to win that either.
Yeah.
And just you look at the team, like, they're still not good. Like, they're not that good. Colton Dock did get caught up, as well as that too. Like, guys like Nazer have been up on the roster too for Chicago. Have you watched Dock? How's he been?
Yeah, Doc looked good. He's definitely like a net front presence guy. So I think most of his goals will come from there. And his first game, he had 5 hits and 5 shots on goal. So, and he's
Really?
already on the second power play unit. So yeah, I've been happy with him. And I think at some point you got to start calling up more guys. Like I think Landon Slaggert would be probably my top choice right now. But yeah, I like what I've seen from Doc so far.
I think they're slowly making progression towards
Yeah,
up those
yeah.
players,
You don't
which
want to ruin anything, and
yeah, it's a good thing. Again, I feel like they have too many players that are currently like in the NHL that need to be NHLers right now, and I feel like you really can't send any of them down except for like I guess like Pat Maroon, but like Pat Maroon, like
yeah,
I don't know. Like again, like they have too many NHLers on their roster. It doesn't have enough room for the young guys, which kind of shows that there might be a problem there, like with the Blackhawks. Like I mean, like why did you go out in the offseason and get all of these players who took spots from the young players? I guess I get you want them to develop, but at the same time, like you want to get a young core around Connor Bedard, and they haven't really been able to necessarily do that. And I
yeah.
also feel like too, like their drafting has not been the greatest outside of a few
No.
of their picks. Like Korchinski struggled. Again, like Nazer's been a good choice, but besides that, like a lot of the other things have kind of flopped for them, to be honest with you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Again, going back to the Winter Classic numbers, like we went on a tangent there with the Blackhawks, but like I don't get how you can say I just don't get like how you can make another game like that. And you're also competing too with college football.
Hmm.
Two big games. Like that's why I was even on New Year's Eve because of the college football games that were
Yeah,
going on New Year's Day because of the extended playoffs. But also, like you can give them a good enough game to watch either. That's the other thing. And
yeah,
I also feel like they need to give other places opportunities. Like I feel like they've just been resorting to Chicago so much and overusing the same teams.
yeah.
Colorado's never had a Winter Classic.
Wow, yeah,
They
that's
have
crazy.
had one outdoor game, I'm pretty sure, and it was that
Yeah.
one against the Kings in 2020.
Hmm.
The only other one was Lake Tahoe, which was
Yeah,
really not out. It was outdoors, but it wasn't like the fan experience outdoors. That was so
yeah,
weird.
that is pretty wild.
It's weird. I don't know if you remember like that time. Like I remember when they played that game against Vegas, it was too hot outside, and they had to cancel the game, and they made it midnight Eastern time.
Right.
Like, oh my god, it made no sense whatsoever. But yeah, like I feel like Colorado needs a Winter Classic ideally, and it's surprising that they haven't gotten one yet, which is honestly wild in my opinion.
Yeah.
As well as that too, do you think what is a Winter Classic that you think should happen?
Um, I think like if you do like Bruins and Leafs or something, you could do that in Toronto or because I think Toronto has a football stadium up there. If I'm not wrong, Carter's not here to correct me, but I think they have a CFL stadium that you could do that at, and then Boston like Fenway Park's always cool. But I think that's pretty recent, so maybe not that.
I wouldn't over you. I feel like Colorado versus Vegas would be a good one.
Yeah, yeah,
In
that'd be cool. Or like Vancouver, Seattle.
Yeah, that would be a good one as well. I think that they have some good ideas that they could do, but I feel like they just resort to the same ones. They
Yeah,
reuse, recycle is what they seem to like to do. As well as that too, I don't know if you've heard, but the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning look like they might be getting the next outdoor game.
that would be cool.
That would be a really weird experience. I don't know if it'd be in Tampa or in Miami, but it still would be a very strange experience, to be honest with you,
Yeah,
because like it's
it's warm.
it's warm. Yeah, that's really all you can say.
Yeah,
It might be the first ever game where it's played on skates on rollerblades. Like I'm gonna
rollerblades. Yeah,
yeah, I'm obviously kidding with that, but I again like I don't understand from that perspective. I think that actually might do really good. Like I think
yeah,
that Winter Classic might actually do really good because those are two good teams. It'll be so weird seeing it in Florida, but again, those are two really good teams that play. So I
hmm,
think that again, like it's really a good idea there for a matchup for sure. But again, like I don't really know, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to other news around the NHL. We have a special interview that is going to take up the majority of this episode. Not a lot here from me and Jack. Again, it's not the entire crew, so we can't go into too much either. Jonathan Toews. I don't know if you heard, Jack, but Jonathan Toews is trying to make a return to the NHL
Yes, he is.
after going on a 5-week healing journey in India. Jack, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about Toews?
Yeah, I mean, I would love another Jonathan Toews on my team, especially right now. The Hawks won't sign him, but he just doesn't fit the timeline. But if you're a contender, like that's a former captain, 3-time Cup winner. I mean, he said he's back at his hockey like weight, like what he weighed when he played, and I think he's making a legit like attempt to return to the NHL, which would be awesome. I would love to see that.
So, Toews, in his last 3 seasons with the Chicago Blackhawks, in 2019-20, he played 70 games, had 18 goals for 60 points. In 21-22, he missed the entirety of 2021.
Yeah.
Was he hurt?
Yeah. He had like COVID symptoms, like really bad.
Oh, yeah. I think I forgot about that.
Yeah.
In 21-22, he played 71 games, had 12 goals for 37 points. And then in his final year with the Blackhawks, he played 53 games. He had 15 goals for 31 points. And I remember filming that podcast after that last game. That last game was sad. Was very sad.
Yeah.
It was against Philadelphia, ironically enough. I remember the tribute they gave to him. Man, that was such a sad time. It really felt like because in that same year, like I'm going to make Jack cry, but in that same year, they lose Patrick Kane to a trade. Let's go further back. In the draft in 2022, they lose Alex DeBrincat in a deal. Later on in 22-23, they lose Jonathan Toews to a trade. And then, or not Jonathan Toews, Patrick Kane to a trade. And then Toews plays his final game and hasn't come back to the NHL ever since. And then they got
top 3 guys right there.
I don't want to hear anything. But yeah, it'd be weird to see him come back. I feel like, though, he can be a 20-goal scorer if he is healthy. I don't know that. Like, I think there are teams that you definitely need to at least look at it. Like, there are teams who are really struggling center-wise. Like, when you listen to this interview with me and Jimmy Hockey, we go into it about how we say that he could be a good third-line center, and I think teams need to look into it for sure. So, yeah, we'll see where that goes, but Toews coming back to the NHL would definitely be something that would be very strange, in my opinion.
Yeah. It would be weird to see, honestly.
It'd be like a blast from the past.
I thought he was done.
Yeah, I agree. Next up, then, let's talk about some signings around the NHL. First off, Frank Vatrano signed a 3-year, $4.57 million contract. Vatrano is on an interesting one because he is on a deferred money basis where it starts in 2035 and ends in 2045. So let me read off this tweet from Pierre LeBrun. So Frank Vatrano's 3-year, $18 million extension is an interesting one. He will get paid $3 million a year in base salary, but then $9 million in deferred salary. Starting 10 years from now in 2035, will make $900K a year for 10 years, and his plan is to live outside the California area and his tax system at this point of retirement. The Ducks, meanwhile, will benefit from deferred payments by having $4.57 million in average annual value instead of $6 million in average annual value on the deal. Creative way for both the team and player to make it work, and perhaps show other players in future way to stick handle around California tax issue. So I think this is very creative from a guy like Vatrano. He's a player who for sure is definitely, he's kind of not in the last stages of his career, but he's definitely planning on retiring within the next, I would say, 10 years. And I think in my eyes, getting a guy like Vatrano for that amount of money is very good. And I think the Ducks are okay paying $900,000 for 10 years in 10 years, essentially. Yeah. So I think they'd be okay with that because by then they will be contenders at the very least, or they will be, they would have won a cup by then. So I think for sure, the Ducks will be completely fine with it. I think it's definitely a very interesting move. I've never seen anything like that before, but overall I think it's very good.
Yeah.
With the Anaheim Ducks for sure. Mark Kastelik signed a 3-year, $1.56 million deal. I love Kastelik. Kastelik, a really good third or fourth line player. He's somebody who I love watching there with the Boston Bruins. As well as that, too, a couple minor signings here. Keaton Middleton signed a 2-year, $775K deal with the Avalanche. Oscar Back signed a 2-year, $825K deal with the Dallas Stars. And, that's pretty much all the signings and stuff around the league. Nothing really else there. It's been a lot of World Juniors and talks of that. Do have a waiver claim. Arthur Kaliev went from the Los Angeles Kings over to the New York Rangers. Kaliev's worth looking at. Arthur Kaliev is somebody who just never worked out with the LA Kings. Let me pull up the stats here real quick.
That's a USA World Juniors legend right there. He won gold.
Yeah, he did. He did win gold with the World Juniors. Back in 2021, actually.
I think he scored in that gold medal game against Canada, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think he did as well. So he has been somebody who has really struggled in the NHL. Has never played a full season besides 1 year with the LA Kings. He was drafted 33rd overall, so he was like a second-round pick back in 2019. He looked really good in juniors. He put up 102 points in 2018-19 with Hamilton. He definitely got kind of screwed by the development with the COVID and all that.
Yeah.
He played his first NHL season in 21-22, played 80 games, had 27 points, was one of the Calder guys that I said it was like a really good Calder player. And then the following year, played 56 games, had 28 points. The next year in 23-24, 51 games played, only had 7 goals for 15 points. And then he hasn't played in the NHL yet this year. He has 5 games played with the Ontario Reign. He has 2 points. He has been scratched primarily a lot this season, and we're already halfway through the year. He's only played 5 games this season overall, not just in the NHL, but in the AHL as well. So
it's weird. It's weird seeing him not work out.
Yeah, he's somebody who has potential, but never got it with the LA Kings. You know, he's from Uzbekistan.
Really?
I'm just looking at that right now on his bio here. He's from Tashkent, Uzbekistan.
That is that's weird.
From Uzbekistan in the NHL.
Yeah,
I'm gonna look that up in a second. But, anyways, Kaliev being claimed by the New York Rangers is definitely somebody who is interesting in a sense that he has a lot of potential, and I think he's somebody who really can pan out with the Rangers if he does get that right opportunity. But again, the Rangers have been known for not giving young guys opportunities. He's only 23, so he does have potential. And by the way, I just looked it up. He is the only Uzbekistan NHLer ever.
Wow. That is pretty cool.
In the entire NHL. So that's pretty cool if we're being honest. So, yeah, definitely something to look into there for sure with him. But we shall see where Arthur Kaliev goes from there. And then one final piece of news before we get into trending players and things like that. The Arizona Coyotes might be coming back. Or Arizona might be coming back. So basically what is going on is a new supervisor's chair at the Maricopa County Board, which is a place in Arizona, has formed an advisory committee of political and business leaders to focus on bringing the Yotes back to Arizona, per Craig Morgan. So, again, I want to say this is minus Alex Morello, who was the shitty owner of the Arizona Coyotes at the time. This is a group of, quote, political and business leaders focusing on bringing the team back to Arizona. So reading more into it, the newly elected Maricopa County Board of Supervisors Chair Tom Galvin is leading the operation. He said, quote, losing the NHL Coyotes was a low point, and I cringed when local politicians took glee of the demise of our hockey team. I have several meetings with NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman, and he looks forward to working with us to identify an owner and the best location for a world-class building. Gary Bettman confirmed that he met Galvin before Christmas via Zoom to discuss the formation of the committee and future steps. This is very optimistic. If you look at the Arizona Coyotes and you're a Coyotes fan and you want to see the team come back, this might happen. This very well may happen. I'm looking forward to seeing where it develops from here. But again, yeah, it is something that definitely is worth looking into. And I would love to see the Coyotes come back. I would love to see them come back, 100%. So I'm looking forward to that. Okay, that's it for news. Trending players. You got any trending players around the league?
I mean, yeah, just the waiver pickup, Kalev, like you mentioned. I mean, that could be someone that plays out for the Rangers. I mean, they're a team that needs a couple new faces in there, and if he gets in, I think he could get like top 6 minutes. To be honest with you, but yeah, we'll see where that goes. But I mean, yeah, that's all I got for trending players.
I have 3 that I'll bring up here. Nick DeSimone was placed on waivers by the New Jersey Devils, was claimed by the Utah Hockey Club. DeSimone is a defenseman, so that obviously means that Utah needs defensemen very badly, and I think that's a good pickup for Utah for sure. And then finally, actually I have 2 more, sorry. Wyatt Kaiser scored his first NHL goal on Sunday. Is a defenseman?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Yeah.
defenseman.
So one of the young guys up there with Chicago right now scored his first NHL goal against the Rangers.
Took him 70 games.
Yeah, I do also want to point out that Jack said in the group chat that we're in, he said the Rangers are ass, and then the Rangers proceeded to score 5 straight goals.
Yeah, that was moments before disaster.
I thought that was funny. One more I do have here though. Lane Hudson scored 3 points last night against the Vancouver Canucks. He looks like the leading rookie right now for the Calder Trophy. So very good to see there from Montreal as a very creative, offensively talented defenseman. Again, he's somebody who is not great defensively, but that will come along as he gets into his NHL career.
Yeah, Cole Hudson plays exactly like him. I just want to point that out.
Exactly like Cole Hudson.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about Elias Pettersson versus JT Miller. We discussed this a little bit in our last episode of 2024, but we're going to go into it here a little bit more now because we have some more updates. We have some more news, in fact. It seems like there is a rift in the locker room possibly with JT Miller and Elias Pettersson and the Vancouver Canucks. It is possible that we will see JT Miller or Elias Pettersson, or both, or neither, get traded at some point this season or in the offseason. Again, I don't particularly agree with what's going on right now. I feel like a lot of it has been blown out of proportion by the media. And I also feel like, too, in a sense, that I don't think it's as big as it's projected to be. And I also think, too, that there might be some other problems with Vancouver that is not necessarily that. So, Jack, how do you feel about Pettersson versus Miller right now?
Yeah, I know I said in the last episode, like, those are 2 superstar guys, and any team would love to have one of them. But if the Canucks were to trade one, I think it would be – I don't think it'd be Pettersson. He's too young, and, I mean, he's going to be, I think, a top 10 player one day. But if they do trade him, Blackhawks should absolutely be making a call.
Yeah, I agree. Pettersson, wasn't there even rumors of him going to Chicago?
Yeah. Rumors, I think, after his contract, I believe.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that was Kaprizov. I think the Hawks were in trade talks for him.
I think the Hawks thing was that it was with Pettersson, like they were going to trade him.
Yeah.
Thing. If he did go to free agency, they would obviously go out and get him. I think he was on pay though. But anyways, yeah, I definitely think that it's more likely that we see JT Miller get traded. I think I even talked about their contracts. I'll look them up again just so I'm thorough. I think that it's unlikely we see either of them get traded. Pettersson is on the first year of an 8-year, $11.6 million deal. And Miller is, I believe, on the second year of a 7-year, $8 million deal. So either way, it's not going to be easy to move either of those players. But they are both very good. So I do think that there is a real possibility there of either of them getting traded, but I don't think that's the way. I don't think that's the way you get this done. I don't think that's the way you figure this out. I think there needs to be something more internally there. I think that they need to come to their senses because this is the same team that went to Game 7 of the second round and without Demko, without Besser. And I still think that as well as that too, I still think too, I don't think you should move on from them that quickly just because there's beef in the locker room. I just don't understand it whatsoever. I think there needs to be some people that need to figure this out in the locker room. Like Quinn Hughes needs to come to his senses and tell these people to wake up. I think that, Rick Tocchet needs to go in there and they need to sit these two players down, tell them to work this shit out if there's even anything really to work out. It might not even be that big of a deal, as we've said. But again, still, like it something needs to give there with the Vancouver Canucks. Now, realistically, Jack, what would you think would be a good trade? What would be a good package for someone like Pettersson if you were to trade for him?
It'd be a lot, and it'd have to be a lot.
First round pick.
Yeah, I think like a team like the Ducks comes to mind. Like you could throw in a bunch of draft picks, 2 or 3 prospects, I think, and then because I don't know, is the Canucks farm system any good?
They have some good players down there. I feel like they could use some future, but again, like when you trade a superstar, you lose.
Yeah, and that's a team that's built to win now. So I think current players would be a big piece too.
Yeah, I really don't. I really don't know. I really don't know. For Miller, I feel like it'd be a little bit rest, but I feel like for Vancouver, they want something back. They're not going to want future. They want something that's current, which does make it a little bit more difficult. It would have to be a team that's contending, but the team that's contending would have to give up like a big name player the other way. That's the other problem with that.
Yes.
It feels like something that would happen in the offseason. It would not be something that would happen in the regular season. It would not be something that would happen during the season. It'd be like an off-season kind of thing. In my opinion, at the very least. I don't know. Like we've seen big trades like that before mid-season, but still at the same time, like I just don't. I don't think that it's gonna go that way. All right. Any more thoughts on Pettersson and Miller?
I don't think it'll come to one of them being traded, honestly, but I mean, they just got to figure it out.
Yeah, 100%. All right, we are going to shift it over to an interview that I did literally half an hour ago. I brought on content creator Jimmy Hockey to talk about his journey in content creation, the Boston Bruins, the Vancouver Canucks, Pettersson versus Miller, the New York Rangers collapse, Four Nations, World Juniors, some Flyers talk, and some other stuff as well. It was a very fun interview. It was about 45 minutes long. So we are going to transition over to that right now. I also want to say, too, Jack was not a part of that. I had a time error with him, and I fucked up, and I said that.
It's all good.
I keep forgetting that he lives in a different time zone than me, and not Eastern Conference. So he thought that the interview was at 7 his time and not 7 my time. So that's on me. But anyways, I will send it right over to my interview with Jimmy Hockey. Enjoy. Okay, so we are joined here with a very special guest, the first guest of 2025. He has 26,000 followers on TikTok, 18,000 followers on YouTube, 7,000 followers on Instagram. He's coming up on 8,000. He's getting pretty close. We have Jimmy Hockey here joining us today. Jimmy, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. Do you like being called Jimmy or Jim, or does it not matter?
Jimmy works for me. Whatever you want to do.
All right, cool. Okay, so the first question that we start off with when we bring on creators, players, anybody in the hockey realm, we always ask them how they got into the game we love. So how did you get into hockey? Usually it's a different story for everyone. Sometimes people start off as a kid. Sometimes, from your parents or where you're born. What's your story?
I was a kid growing up. I was really into sports. I want to say like basketball, football for a while. And I grew up here in Massachusetts. So it's naturally like a big hockey place. So just one day, my brothers and I were bored and we found some old hockey sticks that I think our grandmother had gotten at like some yard sale or something. And we were like, let's give it a shot. So just started getting into some ball hockey to begin with and was wearing like some women's like rollerblading skates, just getting into it at like 7 years old. And then from there, I just fell in love, became a big Bruins fan. And I guess the rest is history for how I got into the sport,
Did you end up like playing at all at any level?
No, so I never played competitive hockey. Was a huge beer league guy, won a few divisions with that, but no, never got into competitive hockey, never played for high school or college, just was more of a watcher and then kind of like a free time player, but just loved it a lot. So
you and me are alike.
Good. Yeah.
You and me are like, so how did the content start? Was that just like, you saw somebody on TikTok do it, or, was it something else? How did you start?
Yeah, so I was really into, I would call myself a really creative kid when I was growing up. I was really into like drawing, logo making and stuff. It was kind of my thing when I was bored. And then I started getting into like video creation a long time ago. When I was like 11 years old, you could probably find some old videos of me like posting some skateboarding videos or something on YouTube or whatever.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then I ended up started doing some other stuff in my free time, video game clips and stuff. And then eventually I just dropped off for a while. And then by the time I was like, I don't know, just 20s, I guess, I was like, oh, let me start getting back into graphic design and video editing. Took a few classes in college on photography. And then in my free time, just kind of taught myself like Adobe and Photoshop, stuff like that. And eventually just got into it and was like, let's put something that I love into the content that I'm creating. So that's where we are today.
What was the, like, it doesn't have to be like a certain post, but like, what was the post or the video or the time frame where you were like, oh my God, like maybe I can make something out of this? Like, you obviously, like, you've built a very good platform. You have over almost 30,000 on TikTok. You have over 15K on YouTube, and you're building a very good community. Where at one point did you realize, like, oh wow, I could really make something out of this?
Yeah, I want to say, well, that's a really good question. I want to say I started making a lot of like video game posts before, and I was a big NHL video game kind of guy. I loved playing those stuffs and loved like the single player, like be a pro kind of stuff. And I remember I was watching people like Nash or when I was younger and stuff post like be a pro. And I remember nobody posts like goalie content on NHL video games. So I was like, I played goalie growing up. I was like, this is cool. Let's do that. And I remember I posted one like be a pro TikTok of just playing goalie, and it like blew up. And that was the series that got me into like making content around hockey. And then eventually I kind of was like, well, I want to expand on this and started doing more real life hockey content, and then eventually some hockey commentary. But the first video was a series called Jimmy Hazy. That was my be a pro name, and I was playing goalie and stuff like that. So
I think I remember that before I even like started following you. I think I do remember that. Where did you go to college, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I went to Worcester State University. It's just a local college here in Massachusetts, and I ended up getting my degree in health science, believe it or not. And so it has nothing to do with what content creation I do, just something completely different.
Are you working in that field right now?
Yeah, I actually work for Boston University. I do cardiovascular research as a full-time job, and then this is kind of my side thing. So doing a lot.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm 17. I just applied to Boston University.
Nice.
So yeah, that's pretty awesome to hear. And if you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
I'm 26 as of a couple days ago.
Awesome. Well, happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
Well, how do you come up with some of this content? Because you make some pretty good stuff. Obviously, like, some of it's based off of like news around the league and stuff. But like, talking about, like, I see one here where it says like, sleeper MVP choice and a few other things, like your most popular videos on TikTok were like the logo design things. Like, how do you come up with some of these ideas? I know you said you were like very creative, but like, do you like brainstorm them in a certain way, or?
Yeah, I'm always, when I come up with content, like I said, I'm just a very naturally creative person without tapping myself on the back or anything like that. So when I'm making content, I'm always just trying to do stuff that other people aren't doing. And it's hard to do that. There's a lot of people making content out there, but just trying to find new styles and not being afraid of what the public reception is. To me, when I make content, I start by saying I'm making content for myself. I'm not doing it for other people. When other people start to watch, that just makes me want to do it even more. But at the end of the day, I'm doing it because I love it. So I just like trying out new things. And to me, I watch the game so much, and then just in my head, I'll be like, well, that would be a fun concept for a video. Or maybe I'll see some small artist who does some cool logo merging thing and just want to kind of shout them out and give some more kind of credit or feedback to some other creators in the space. So just honestly trying to grow the game in whatever way I can with any kind of entertaining content that people will want to watch. So
That's pretty awesome to hear. Yeah, me and you are like in that way as well. Again, like some people make the content for the views and that, but it's good to hear that there are still people like that, because I feel like, kind of hockey talk has turned into just like, well, not just hockey talk, but like hockey social media has turned into people just trying to get likes and things like that. And yeah. What would you say is your most favorite video that you've ever made?
Oof.
Doesn't have to be specifically on YouTube. It can be a couple, honestly.
Yeah, I'm a big YouTube person. I'm a big fan of long form content and actually being able to, kind of like you were just mentioning, not just doing things for likes and clicks, but really doing some deep dives into things and actually making some content. I think, unfortunately, it is one of my most popular videos, but it's a recent video I did on YouTube talking about Jonathan Toews, and another one that I did on Henrik Lundqvist. I've been doing a little bit more throwback stuff because I love old time hockey stuff, and anything that I can do to kind of show the history of the game. And there's actually one that I did on a old Buffalo Sabres little prank that the drafting team did that I'm not sure if you're aware of, where they had this guy that they fake drafted because they were bored of what was going on. It's like Taro Sugimoto or something like that. And dude, that video was so fun to research, man. I was just like, oh, not a lot of people know about this, and I didn't know about it. And then I was like, oh, let me do this in a fun way. And I don't know if it ended up being super popular, but like people were like, dang, that was a really cool story. So anything that like kind of goes back into old time hockey or old school stuff is a fun thing for me.
That's awesome. So transitioning away from YouTube and TikTok and all that over to the NHL itself, you're a big Bruins fan. I'm wearing Bruins gear for you.
I appreciate that.
So how are you feeling about the Boston Bruins this season? Because I told you in my DMs, like, I'm not really buying into them this year, to be honest. I don't know how you feel. What do you think?
I would say that I was not as concerned as everybody else was to start the year. I will say my expectations were actually lower than they were last year, believe it or not, because I didn't feel like the Bruins did anything to really fix any of the issues that a lot of people had concerns with last offseason. I do think that Elias Lindholm will eventually start playing better, and that will be an upside for them. But this team still lacks a number one center, and they got slower defensively. So to me, if anything, they're just worse. Then they lost their identity of having two goalies. So I'm not saying I'm not buying into it, but I think they'll make the playoffs and likely be a first or second round exit, unfortunately, unless they go out and make a big swing for potentially guys like JT Miller, who are available on the market and could slot in as their number one center. But the problem is for teams like Boston, they just don't have the assets to make a move like that. So it's difficult, but I would say Boston's just a mediocre team this year, a wild card, maybe third seed in the division type of team.
Now let's look back at the Linus Ullmark trade. What happened back in June, ironically on Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, literally 20 minutes before the game started. How did you feel about that deal? Were you like, yeah, no matter what, Boston loses this deal? Or were you like, hey, I mean, we get some good guys back in return? I mean, how did you feel about it?
It's tough because I hated the deal just because I didn't like how the Bruins handled the Swayman stuff afterwards. I didn't like the timing of the deal, if that makes more sense, where you're trying to negotiate a contract with your younger goaltender and you sell your guy off way too early, and then you're stuck in this like public relations mess where now Swayman doesn't know what's going on. In terms of the deal, I just think that they were trying to appease people who said they couldn't draft and they didn't get a quality player back. But in the end, I was always more of an Ullmark guy than a Swayman guy. So I always thought Ullmark was a better goalie and in his prime and fitted the timeline of this team a little bit better than Swayman did, even though I still think Swayman's a good goalie. It wasn't like a terrible trade to me because I think Kostelic has been, for the most part, a really good addition for this team. But the rest, it's too early to tell with like the first round pick they got. They got like a Tage Thompson-esque player, I believe, in that draft. So it's one of those things we'll have to see over time. But right now, it's not looking too great for the Bruins.
Yeah, not particularly the best deal, especially with how Ullmark has been doing with the Ottawa Senators. Oh my God. Like he might even single-handedly carry them if he didn't get injured. How do you feel, or I guess we should go back to the Swayman thing. What were your opinions then? Did you believe that Swayman was being a little bit too greedy, trying to get more money? Or did you think that the management was at fault? Or were you of the opinion where like, just get this thing freaking done? Like, I don't care how much money it is. Just get the freaking deal done. It's like literally 3 days away from the 3 days away from the regular season, and they finally sign him. So how did you feel about that whole thing that went on?
Yeah, I'll just start by saying I'm always for the players. When I'm doing this stuff, I think that these organizations have money for a reason, and players should get the money that they want. I think Swayman earned every bit of the contract just based on what the market is. You saw Swayman sign that deal, and then Ullmark signs the deal. Ottinger signs the deal. They're all signing that exact same number because that's where the cap's going. I think it was more of a mess on management, kind of like I was alluding to earlier with the Allmark thing. They just completely messed up with how they handled everything with the arbitration the year before, then having the Face Off documentary come out and that being a topic of that documentary and how it all just unfolded in the public. Sports talk radio is really big here in Boston. So when you leak something like that, it just becomes the topic for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I can imagine how frustrating that is for a guy like Swayman, who just had an unreal performance in the playoffs and was your backbone. And now they're telling you don't deserve this money, even though they said, hey, we want you on this team. We traded away the other guy. So yeah, just a little bit of a mishandling by management, and then the offseason acquisitions they made too. Just kind of not the best moves from Sweeney, but again, the Bruins always seem to find a way. So yeah, I never try to judge them until the end of the season where they end up getting bounced in the first or second round or whatever it is. So
That is true. Yeah, my opinion was that, like, I was of the opinion, and I'm not a Bruins fan. I was just like, get the freaking deal done. Like, I mean, like, it, from what I could tell, it wasn't like that big of a difference between the two sides of a contract. It was only like, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I felt like it was only like $500,000 to $1 million, like a difference per year. Like,
yeah,
it felt like it wasn't that big of a gap, and I'm just like, just get it done. Like what are we doing? And then I also felt like too, the comments from Cam Neely was like completely unnecessary. I didn't think that was, like, it's one thing to, be upset in the negotiations behind closed doors, but I don't feel like things like that you should be making available to the public and all that. And it really came close to Swayman wanting to be traded, which I'm going to be honest with you, if Swayman got traded and Jonas Korpisalo is your starting goalie, I don't particularly think you guys are a playoff team, let alone, what you guys were projected to be this year. But again, I do agree with you. Like, they didn't have the highest expectations in the world. I kind of agree with you as well. Like, their expectations did lower a little bit for me, but I also felt like too, maybe with the ads of Lindholm and Zadorov and a few other guys they brought in, I felt like, maybe they'd be, about the same, maybe a little bit worse. But I felt like with those deals, I feel like they paid so much for him. I feel like they would have been okay, but hasn't been so far. So I guess I can ask that question. How have you felt? You kind of touched base on Lindholm a little bit, but how have you felt about Zadorov and Lindholm and the other signings that Boston's made?
Yeah, personally with the Zadorov thing, I never really understood it because we, at least in the playoffs last year, were like 7 deep with our defensemen. And I think the only guy, I don't think Matt Grzelcyk was on our team last year. Maybe he was. If he was like our 7th guy at the time, and we had Wotherspoon, who was a quality 6 defenseman. So the Zadorov move was a direct answer to getting bounced by Florida 2 years in a row. And I just didn't think that it was a move you needed to make, especially when my biggest concern with this team right now is not even center position. It's more they're lacking a top 6 scoring winger. And you let one of them walk in free agency in Jake DeBrusk, who I think is having a phenomenal year in Vancouver. And a lot of people don't talk about it, but you're desperately missing that piece this year with you having to slot in a young guy like Fabian Lysell and Matthew Potras at some points, and they just aren't clicking the way that you need them to. And that's why Boston is losing a lot of their games, because they have to either shut out the opponent and keep it to a 2-1 kind of game, or they're just completely getting blown out like we see from teams like the Maple Leafs and, God forbid, even teams like the Islanders the other night. So it's just become a mess with the team because they can't score, and when they have good games where they are scoring, their defense is collapsing because they're too slow. So there's a lot to be concerned about in Boston right now, and the hope is just that maybe Sacco can fix everything as the season goes on, and give him some credit because he just started. So that's kind of my only answer for them right now. Get a top 6 winger, get a top 6 forward, even if you can get like a JT Miller. Maybe things will look a little better.
We'll get into that. So I do want to say this. They only have 4 players who have scored 10 or more goals this season. David Pastrnak, Brad Marchand, Justin Brazeau,
Crazy.
and Charlie Coyle. So again, like, Brazeau's been really good this year. He's been an impressive piece. And Coyle has been, he's kind of struggled, but he does have 10 goals, so good on him. If there was, ideally, because you just talked about wanting a top 6 winger, if there was a winger out there that you could get, who would you want realistically? Is it JT Miller or is it somebody else? Like, who would you be thinking there?
I don't personally want him. So I'm going to say this. I don't personally want him, but I think a lot of Bruins fans want him. I think Brock Nelson has been a big name that people really want the Bruins to get. just because he scores goals. That's what he does. And I think the Bruins desperately lack that. I don't know what the contract is with him right now. I think, is he making like $8 million at this point, or is he a little bit less than that? Do you know?
I can tell you he is making. He is in the final year of a 6-year, $6 million contract. So he's making $6. Not terrible.
Yeah. So I guess for me, like just getting a guy who kind of can be there for the long haul. I don't know what teams are going to be exploding. Like if teams like the Islanders end up deciding, hey, we need to strip this to the ground, and guys like Matt Barzal or somebody become available, I think that the Bruins should seriously be in on these kind of free agents. Or Patrick Kane, if he becomes available and you're making a playoff push, he's on a pretty team friendly deal. I think he's only 1 year, like $4 million. Go out and get those kind of players. If Jonathan Toews comes out of retirement, I think you should be swinging at everything. Just be like, hey, who can we bring in? Who can we look to improve with this roster? Because right now, no one is taking you seriously.
Yeah, I think they need to, like, Toews is 37. I don't really know. Like, sometimes people making returns to the NHL doesn't work out. But I think if you're Boston, like, your center depth is not great. I think it's at least worth taking a look at. Like, I mean, like, if he could fit in as even, like, a third-line center, like, he's a consistent, like, 20-goal scorer. I think if he can get back to that, like, he wouldn't be a bad fit on Boston on, like, a league minimum deal. It wouldn't be terrible. But, again, Brock Nelson as well as that, too. Since you mentioned him, he has scored 30-plus goals in the last 3 seasons, 37, 36, and 34 respectively. So he is somebody who can score for you. And again, as you said, like I think that could be a great piece for Boston. This year's been a little bit difficult for him, but I think that you get him alongside, like what? Would he be playing with Pastrnak ideally or Marchand?
It depends, right? Like it depends what kind of moves you're making. Like if you swing for like a Patrick Kane, I think that Kaner would probably be better suited for a second line role. But I don't think you can really say you got to kind of build with the chemistry, because what would it be like Marchand? And is he a left wing or is he a right wing for Nelson?
Nelson is a left wing.
Yeah, so you could see him up there, but I don't know. It depends how they want to like spread out their lines, because I don't think the Bruins have had a lot of success with their lines this year and are committed to any sort of like chemistry like they have been in the past with like the perfection line. So whatever's working for the team, I mean, I think they're kind of going game by game, just throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. So if you can do it, great. I just don't know what they have to trade. That's the problem. There's no draft picks. They don't have prospects. They would basically have to trade pieces on their lines, like Trent Frederick, who is Brock Nelson really going to be a huge upgrade from Trent Frederick? I'm not too sure. So it's kind of about just taking risks if you're really committed to this year, or saying, hey, we'll try again next year and hopefully we can get a better free agent or something.
They have to make like a hockey trade. Like if they want to realistically get somebody like Nelson, or they have to give up their draft capital, which I got to be honest, they don't have a lot of that in particular anyways. They do have a first round pick this year, but like, I think you kind of want to keep that. But yeah, again, as you said, like it's going to be difficult for them to really move on or, you know, go out and get somebody big like that, because they just don't have the assets without giving up the amount of the very little future or, you know, some of the current players you have right now. Is there anything else that you would want on Boston? Like depth, defense, you know, like I know we talk about defense, but like, is there anything else you would like think they need to improve on?
I don't think there's anything else that they can improve on. I think they actually have pretty decent depth with their fourth line being super competitive and clicking on a lot of different levels. I think their defense, obviously, they invested a lot of money into this defensive core. And with guys like Mason Lowry coming up, I think that they're kind of set with their blue line and then Swayman in net. I really just think Boston needs to focus on their top six and improving their special teams. That has been the death of this team this year. They can't score a power play goal to save their life. And uncharacteristically, they haven't been killing a lot of penalties, which has been Boston's calling card forever now. So I think really focusing on your special teams and trying to improve that, and hopefully making, like you said, either a big hockey trade or just something to improve this team so you're a little bit more competitive in the playoffs this year, should be the main focus right now.
Yeah, they are second worst in power play percentage, which is like actually kind of crazy. Like, again, I know like the team has kind of struggled a little bit, but you'd think it'd be better than the Ducks or the Sharks or the Blackhawks. Again, as you said, even the penalty kill is ranked 25th. So again, the special teams has also been a big issue too, which could come down to like getting somebody who could fit in well in the power play. But again, you don't have the assets to really do that. So I want to ask you one more question. How do you feel about Joe Sacco? Do you think that he could be the permanent coach of this team, or when we get to the end of the season, do you think they should make a move for someone else? Again, that might depend on the end of the season, but where do you stand on that right now?
It's tough, man, because he's done his record wise, he's done a pretty good job getting this team at least to a more respectable place. But you're never going to find a bigger fan of Jim Montgomery than me. So this whole move was just really disappointing in my eyes, the way that management handled his contract and everything. I would say the biggest flaw of Joe Sacco is that he was the team's special teams coach before he was pushed up. So I'm not really sure why people expected a lot to change with their power play and penalty kill when the guy who was behind it is the same person at this point. I don't think there's any realistic world where he doesn't get the head coaching job unless there's somebody else who becomes available that the Bruins just can't turn down, because there's not enough sample size, and usually coaches get a little bit more leeway, and he's probably going to get a cheaper contract than most if they do sign him. So I could realistically see Boston bringing him back if they get to the second round. But if they either miss the playoffs or get knocked out in the first round, I can't really see them making the full-time head coach.
Is it because Montgomery has the same name as you? Is that why you like him?
Nah, man, I'm just a big fan of players, coaches, and guys who really value both younger players and veteran players who speak in the locker room with poise and can command a room. There's something about Montgomery that I just really enjoyed as a head coach, just watching him and the way he interacted and held players accountable and wasn't afraid to do the things that were necessary. And I think the Bruins had Bruce Cassidy right before too. So we've had some really solid coaches here. So now watching games, Sacco just almost feels unnoticeable. It just doesn't seem like we have a head coach this year, it's kind of a weird territory considering some of the great guys we've had in the past. So I think it's more so just seeing his success in St. Louis, how he's improved that team already, and what he's done in Boston, just the kind of guy he is. I think that's the type of person the Bruins need right now, and they let him go too early.
One more question on the Bruins before we talk about some other stuff. Do you think that it's possible if the Bruins miss the playoffs or get bounced in the first round, do you think it's possible that the big man upstairs, Don Sweeney, gets fired?
I don't think Don Sweeney is really the problem, so no.
Okay.
I think maybe fans will be wanting it, and maybe we'll see it just for PR reasons, but I've seen some stuff since Don Sweeney took over, the Bruins have had the most wins, most points in the NHL. They've done a pretty good job, not tanking and going to the bottom of the league and being a playoff team. I think they've only missed 1 or 2 times under his tenure. And while they haven't won a Stanley Cup, they've been to the finals in 2019, and they have some really good players. So I don't see him really getting fired. But if they do get bounced in the first round, there is a possibility that a lot of people get changed out, and we see a big-time hockey trade for this team, because this market's huge, and we're seeing the collapse in New York right now. A similar thing will happen if the Bruins kind of start falling in the standings again.
It's true. So let's actually transition over to the collapse of the New York Rangers, if you want to talk about that.
Sure.
This has been insane. This has been an absolutely historic collapse. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this, where a team went from, they were contending, they were doing so good, to bottom of the Metro in a month, not even a month. It was such a short span of time. What do you think is the real issue? Because they traded Trouba, who they thought was the issue, and supposedly now he's not. What do you think is the problem here with the New York Rangers and why they have been just so bad these last month?
It's a combination of things. I think the biggest issue for the Rangers overall outside this season is the fact that this team can't develop young players at all. They have no idea how to do it, and they fumble on almost all of their best draft picks. I was talking with a couple friends a few weeks back who I think I was doing a podcast with, and just the way they handled Lafreniere and Kakko through the early years of their career. You put them in the lineup immediately. You put them on your third line for years. You never give them power play one time. And I think their rebuild has just been a little bit untraditional when, let's say, compare them to the New Jersey Devils. They get Jack Hughes as their first overall pick, and you see them investing all of their time into him. He's their star. He's getting the best minutes every single night. Whereas the Rangers, they went out and almost immediately rebuilt with free agencies, Panarin, Zibanejad, Trocheck, and the team was like instantly back in the playoffs before Lafreniere was even in his like second or third year. So I think just not being able to develop your players and then giving up on players like Kako way too early when you didn't need to trade him at all. You just start healthy scratching him, maybe because there's an ego in the locker room with the coaches or he wants more ice time and you're not giving it to him. I just think that the Rangers don't know how to handle their players. And I think the young stars is where it begins in their development. So whether that's a coaching thing, whether that's Drury and his inability to step in and say, hey, these guys are playing, whatever it might be, that's where it all begins in my eyes.
I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. So I've been talking about it for so long. I've been saying this, like the Rangers in 2018-19, they finished 26th in the NHL. They're bad. They're not good. They go into the draft. They get second overall. Jack Hughes goes first. Capo Caco gets second. And at the time, we're thinking, okay, well, they get a really good, maybe not like a franchise cornerstone at the time, but like a really like elite player when he was projected to be at the time. It feels weird saying that because he hasn't turned into that at all. But then literally only a few weeks later, Artemi Panarin just lands in their arms. And I think it's because all of a sudden they were like, oh, crap, we need to like make this team ready now that Panarin's here. And I feel like if Panarin never went to the Rangers, they would be on like a New Jersey or like Ottawa trajectory right now where they would be like, like they would have a really bright future. They would be like contending for years. Maybe they wouldn't have Lafreniere, but things could have been way different than they are now. Instead, it feels like the Rangers, like, again, they only have like 2 more years, a year to contend. So it felt like their window was so much shorter in the way that they went. And now we're seeing, the repercussions of that. And it seems like the players have given up on the team, on the fans, on the organization. It seems like Chris Drury has completely lost the room. Peter Laviolette might lose his job because he's the scapegoat. It's similar to Boston, to be honest with you. I don't think that Laviolette's the problem necessarily, and he might be the one that gets fired. But I don't know. We might see some real trades over these next couple of weeks. Do you think there's anybody like that you could see getting dealt out of the Rangers, possibly by the trade deadline?
I don't think any of them should be dealt. I think it's an internal issue. I mean, I'm sure you saw the reports today about how they tried to trade Zibanejad earlier in the season for JT Miller. This is what I'm talking about, okay? I was mentioned it with Swayman earlier. Going out and making these trades and letting players know that, hey, we aren't happy with you here, we're going to shop you. That's not instilling confidence. That's the complete opposite. So if everything's happening earlier in the year, your captain gets traded, your former second overall pick from no less than like 6 years ago, he's gone now for pennies on the dollar. What are we doing here? That's not instilling confidence in your team. That's saying, hey, like, we don't care. We're going to do whatever it takes. No one's safe. And that's not a nice thing to feel when you're a player, I bet. Like, these guys have families. They have homes there. They're not looking to be traded in the blink of an eye just because you can slightly upgrade with another player. So I think just coming out, I don't remember what other team said it. There was another team who was just like, we believe in this roster. We're going to figure it out internally. That's Buffalo. Not happening. It was Buffalo. Yeah. As much as I hate it, I hate what Buffalo's doing, and I hate that this team can't win. I admire that so much because these players don't have to worry about that stuff. They're like, hey, it's all in here. Like, we have the answer. We just have to figure it out. The Rangers should have a culture like that, not Buffalo.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Like, they made it like very clear, like last offseason, that like they were trying their hardest to trade Jacob Trouba, their captain. And Trouba's like, no, give me 1 more year. My wife's finishing her like medical degree and all that and stuff. And they made it an entire thing all off season, all the way up until he was traded a couple weeks ago. They were like, we want to trade you. We want to get you the hell out of here. How do you think that has an impact on the room? Like, the players aren't blind. They see the same things that we're seeing on social media where Trouba was nearly traded, and the fact that like, oh, they want to trade him so bad. Like, how do you think that like do you think that like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, no, totally. Yeah. I think when it comes to this kind of stuff, this is a lesson for every other NHL team. Keep everything private. These are people. And I think as fans, we often don't think about it like this, but like, these are people who have lives. And Jacob Trouba, I think, has kids too, from what I saw in that documentary as well. Like, these are people. They don't have to do things like Trouba signed that contract. He has the no move clause. He has every right in the world to say, I want to stay in New York. That's just the way it is. He doesn't want to go play for a smaller market while his wife's in New York. So eventually, when it just builds up and builds up and builds up, the rest of the team sees this. And then when he gets traded to Anaheim, they're like, wow, that was a colossal mess. And we don't want to be involved in that. Why would we want to play for people who are willing to do that to our captain, who just got us to the Eastern Conference Finals last year? Like, what are we doing here? So it's a culture thing, man. It's just about empowering your players and not leaking private information to the entire social media world about what's going on with your trades.
Yeah, I completely agree. Just like it's so unprofessional from both the Rangers. It is actually insane how things have gone this way. Now, Igor Shesterkin, after Trouba got traded, signed a 8-year, I think it was $11.5 million deal.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on that contract? Did you think it was a good deal? Did you think like, I don't really agree with it, but it had to be done? What were your thoughts?
I like it, but I just don't like the timing of it. Again, it kind of stinks a little bit of like management trying to nickel and dime him with that $11 million offer where like he probably was asking for 12, and instead of just being like, you know what, we're going to give you the 12 because you're worth every penny, they just were trying to get it down so much. And again, you're going into the season, you don't have your new contract, there's all this stuff happening in the locker room, and now that's just another thing that's on your plate that's causing a divide where maybe, I don't think players feel like this, but maybe some of them were like, well, why aren't you taking a little bit less? And why are you nickeling and diming so we can't get other people? And I don't think that's what's happening, because I feel like players don't do that. But those conversations are now out there in the media and everybody's speculating. And when they open their phones, that's all they see. So just constant drama is just surrounding this team. And I don't think I've talked about the Rangers this much in a season in forever, but I feel like every week I have a new video coming out about the Rangers just because of a new story that's negatively reflected on the franchise.
Yeah, they keep falling. I don't know when it stops, but they keep on falling. You know another team that's fallen? The Vancouver Canucks, and it's for a couple of reasons. First off, I think their blue line is not particularly the greatest. They need to find another piece there on that blue line. But what has really been just highlighted is Elias Pettersson versus JT Miller. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know your opinion on this, but I think it is just the stupidest thing ever. I don't think that it is as big as the media is making it to be.
Agreed. Yeah.
But I do kind of feel like there might be a rift in the locker room because of it. So what are your thoughts on what's going on in Vancouver right now? It doesn't have to be on just Pettersson versus Miller, but they're struggling. They're 6-5-6 since December 1st. It's not ideal. They have a couple teams that are really close behind them in the standings. How do you feel about Vancouver right now?
So to start with the JT Miller and Elias Pettersson thing, there's obviously something there, but you're 100% right. Like, the media is just blown this out of proportion just because it's a Canadian market and they just are focused on every little bit that they can. There's been like meetings with like JT Miller and Elias Pettersson, like, stop asking about this. Like, there's no issues and stuff. So yeah, I think there's a rift because otherwise there wouldn't be trade speculations, because why would you trade JT Miller or Pettersson if there was no problem? So obviously there's something. But with the Canucks in general, I think we touched on it a little bit. Their defensive core is just not up to snuff. And I think people are also forgetting that their Vezina nominee last year didn't get training camp. He started like 2 months into the season, so they've been playing with backup goalies for most of the year. Yep. And now he's just getting his reps in. And it kind of goes back to the Swayman thing we were talking about earlier too, where training camp is so important to players. Just a couple references: Swayman this year, Trevor Zegras last year missing out on training camp because of a contract dispute. These players need the time to get themselves into the season. And when you don't do that, you start using the regular season as your kind of training weeks. And that can kind of reflect poorly on the win-loss record for a team. So I think important for the team to figure out what's going on with Pettersson and Miller first, but also start thinking about your blue line a little bit more. Because I think Quinn Hughes was out week to week with an injury now for a couple of weeks. So or maybe it's happening now, whatever it is. So if he's out, that team's it's gonna be tough. Yeah. So
he just came back against Montreal last night.
Cool.
So he is back in the lineup, at least for now.
Good news.
So we say. I do want to say this too. The Canucks are also dealing with a bunch of injuries. Hronek is going to be out for a little while. Pettersson is actually injured right now. He's going to be out for a little bit. What's funny is that when I saw that happen, I posted on Instagram. I'm like, Miller's going to score like 20 points on this stretch that Pettersson's not playing.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And then again, like Demko is not 100%. So I feel like some of it does lie on injuries, but yeah, like Vancouver, just like it doesn't, I don't think, I saw some people saying that, oh, last year was a miracle run. I don't necessarily think that. I think it's been a combination of injuries and a incompetent blue line and just, the Pettersson versus Miller stuff. And I mean, to be honest with you, I'm looking at their lines right now. Having Derek Forbert and Vinny Desharnais on the same pairing is not that great. I'm sure you can say that as a Bruins fan, Forbert was not the greatest player there.
You need somebody else who's going to pick up the slack for him, as Hal said. He's a fine player just in that kind of 6-man, 7th-man role, but I wouldn't be relying on that, especially with Hronek out. And again, there's a lot of turnover with the Canucks this year. They lost Lindholm, they lost Adorov. Those both went to Boston. They bring in DeBrusk, they bring in Heinen, Forbert. There's a lot of new guys on that team, a lot of injuries that they're dealing with, and who knows, if this Pettersson and Miller thing goes bad, maybe they'll regret not trading for Zibanejad. Maybe they'll regret not making those kind of moves, but I don't know. I would really try to focus on fixing this because I think what you have is special. And I think that they could be a real contender with like a move or two, but they got to figure out this infighting thing first because the season's just going to end in failure if they don't.
Yeah, they need to have a meeting. They need to tell these players to figure it out, whether it's Pettersson and Miller or the entire roster. Yeah. Like they need to figure it out because again, as you said, like this team is good. They can win. Like this team minus DeBrusk and a couple other players, like this is the same team that went last year to Game 7 against the Oilers without Demko and without their top scorer Brock Besser, and they only lost by 1. Like I believe that this can be something, but I feel like again a mix of injuries, Pettersson versus Miller, all of it is just combined for.
Do you think that that's like the rift? Because that just doesn't happen overnight. Like clearly Pettersson and Miller would have been fighting for a few seasons now, as far as I've heard. So what has really changed with this team to make them the top in the Pacific to now 4th or 5th in their division with the pace that they're going?
I don't really know. I think it might just be because like not having Demko. Like I don't.
That's the only thing I can think of.
What the rift is like. I don't know what the problem is there. Like I'm like unless if it really is that. But it seems like they have not been agreeing for years. Like I and if it really was that big of an issue, I don't think Pettersson would have signed a contract here, or Pettersson would have been like, I want Miller gone. Something would have happened there. We would have heard something about that. But
maybe it's about like minutes and stuff. Like maybe Pettersson wants those top line minutes and JT's been getting them and he thinks he deserves them, or JT thinks Pettersson's too soft. Whatever the reason is, it's clearly starting to affect other players where it's like even guys like Quinn Hughes don't know how to handle what's going on there as their leader, and it just is kind of blown into something that doesn't need to happen. So I'm really into this team. I like the Canucks a lot. I really hope that they can figure it out because just seeing them in the playoffs last year was way more exciting than some of the other teams we've seen in the past who are more mediocre. So I really do hope we can see the Canucks kind of put things together and get back into the conversations a bit.
Yeah, me too, for sure. Let's talk about the World Juniors. The World Juniors just wrapped up a couple of days ago. The United States won gold. Sure, you're very happy about that.
Yes.
Yeah. So, have you watched the World Juniors? Let me start off with that first.
I have, yes.
All right. Who are some of the players in this tournament this year that really impressed you? For me, like a guy like Cole Hudson really, really stood out to me. Felix Ungersorum on Sweden was somebody who really stood out to me too. And even the guys on Latvia, like Matejko, Capitals, he's looked really good. Who are some of the guys that have impressed you?
Zeev Buriam is the guy who really impressed me the most, and I think the Wild are going to be very happy that they got him so late in the draft this year. Isn't he coming off like 2 World Juniors championships, a Denver championship? Like the kid's been on a winning streak lately, and he was just so impressive, man, in that tournament. I have nothing but good things to say about him, and him along with Brock Faber. Like the defensive core for the Wild, they're just going to be insane in a couple of years. But it just them. It really just that was like my biggest guy from the tournament that stood out to me the most as like this guy's a difference maker.
Yeah, Juracek, Boyum, Faber, Spurgeon. That's your top 4. Unbelievable top 4, honestly.
Who's the guy I'm forgetting his name because he's got a funny name. The Detroit defensive prospect. He was really solid in this tournament too on Team USA.
Oh, Axel Sandin Pellikka.
Yes, Pelika. He was a beast too. Just USA has some great young defensemen coming up, so a lot of good things to look forward to if you like some of these players or they're joining your team.
Sweden, though, well, ASP's on Sweden. They're freaking cursed, by
Yeah.
the way. Just want
Yeah.
to say that right now.
Yeah.
With Canada, have you been following the absolute disaster that's been going on in Canada right now? How do you feel about that? I'm sure you're very happy as an American. I was very happy.
Yeah. I was happy for the tournament's sake, but I do think it's more entertaining when Canada and US are both at their heights. Yeah, I've seen people saying it's like a lack of effort. It's like a thing where the locker room is just not the same, or people complaining that they're too talented and all of their best players are already in the NHL. Whatever people want to say, it's just something's got to be fixed culture-wise in Canada, because you go back a few years, you're not seeing this happen. They're not losing to the Czech Republic. They're not losing to Latvia. That's just not happening. So I think just trying to figure out what the future of Hockey Canada is going to be important, and finding players who actually fit rather than just throwing all of these guys on there who don't really mold well.
I feel like the tournament has changed from what it was in previous years. And I feel like Canada hasn't come along with the change in the tournament to really, bring that together. That's kind of how I feel about it. The Four Nations tournament is being held in Boston and Montreal. How do you feel about the rosters? What are your overall predictions about that? Like, who do you think is going to win the tournament?
I think it would be silly to not say USA, but I'm actually really invested in Team Sweden. I think that team is a sleeper for this year. I'm not into Canada's roster all that much, even though I think they'll be good. Again, kind of like they did with the World Juniors, I just feel like not all the best players are going, and they try to build like a team that complements one another, but I just don't trust their goaltending. I don't really think that their forward depth is as good as Team USA, and Team USA's defensive core is just out of this world good. So I think Team USA should be the favorite, but I would keep a close eye on Sweden just because they have a lot of like talented guys on there who could really make an impact in this tournament. The Barkovs of the world who just are completely underrated. So I would keep an eye on them.
Yeah, I love to hear that. I think Sweden really was a dark horse for this tournament for sure. Again, like I like the raw. Like it's not like they have a lot of players who like aren't as like appealing to like the usual hockey fan, but like I look at it and I see like that team could beat the USA. Like it's doable. It may not be easy. Again, these are the best players in the league playing against each other, but I think that overall it is going to be a very fun tournament. I'm looking forward to it. Are you going to it?
I want to very badly. I was looking at some of the tickets I never got around to buying, but if they're still available, I think I'm gonna try to get a few tickets and go, because how often does this stuff happen in actually places where you live? So I gotta try to get there.
Do you live in like the Boston area?
I live a little bit out from Boston. I do work in Boston, obviously with Boston University, but yeah, I go to probably too many times at TD Garden for the Bruins or Celtics or whatever's going on there.
When do you have any upcoming games that you're going to?
No, not on the slate. I was going to go to the Oilers one. I got a few PWHL games that I think I'm going to be going to pretty soon.
Really?
So yeah, the Fleet do it out in Lowell, so that's fun. I'm not sure where you're located. Are you located near any PWHL stuff?
I live in Pennsylvania. They haven't done any PWHL stuff here besides in Pittsburgh, but I live closer to Philadelphia.
Cool.
Like an hour out from Philly. So
Cool.
Yeah.
Well,
All right.
how are you feeling about your Flyers this year, man? Before we wrap up.
Don't even get me started. Philadelphia really makes me angry. Their goaltending has been the most frustrating thing ever to watch. I'm not even watching tonight's game against the Leafs. Like I can't even put myself through it again. Last night they actually looked like, or not last night, on Sunday they looked like half decent, but just like I can't. They're so inconsistent. And John Tortorella is stealing the Calder from Matvei Michkov right now and giving it over to Lane Hudson or Macklin Celebrini. Like it feels like, I don't know. It's all.
You think he's a bad coach for them? You think they gotta maybe find like a Jim Montgomery for that team?
I think he's the right coach, wrong time. Like I feel like some of the things that he wants to do, like the way he's treated Matvei and just benching him all the time. I'm like, just freaking play the kid. Like he's not going to learn anything from the bench just sitting there half the time. Just freaking play the kid. You're going to make him want to leave.
Yeah,
and God forbid he leaves. We'll be in a rebuild for 10 years. So
Yeah, after the whole Cutter Gauthier thing, I can't imagine you want to go through that again.
oh my god, that was something else too. They also, I do want to talk about this. They are playing the Ducks, I think, next Saturday or this upcoming Saturday in Philly.
Oh,
So
all right.
yeah, it's not going to be a fun game for him. I was like thinking about it too. Like I looked at the tickets, like even in the summer, I looked at the tickets and it was like, like $40, $30, $25, and then you get to like the Ducks game, it's like $110 for the cheapest ticket. I'm like, oh god, like they are
Dude,
really, yeah.
Those are some cheap tickets, though. I don't think you can get Bruins tickets for like less than $100 right now, even on like games against the Sharks or something else. Those are some pretty good ticket deals for the Flyers.
Well, first off, we are poverty, and second, I was looking on like TickPick, like I wasn't looking on like the main team website,
Sure.
on TickPick, but yeah, I think that we'll see where they go. We really need a top 10 draft pick, top 5 preferably, but I don't think we're going to be that bad. I think we're going to stay around where we are and get a player and just get another Jet Luchenko, and pass on whoever the top defenseman is, like we did with Boyum. So yeah. All right, well, Jimmy, this has been terrific. Thank you so much for coming on. Do you have anything you want to plug? I'll have all your stuff in the description, but is there anything else you want to kind of plug?
No, nothing too crazy. Just YouTube and all the other stuff. If you guys want to watch some cool hockey content, that's where to go. But nothing outside of that.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really didn't know you that much before this. Like, I knew who you were, but like I know like all the other creators, like Marcus, Max, Bartner, all of them. But I really didn't know you, and I've learned that you are a terrific, very well knowledgeable creator and person. So thank you so much for coming on, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much to Jimmy or Jimmy Hockey for joining us on the show. If you want to go check out Jimmy's accounts and profiles on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, they will be listed below in the description. All right, Jack, we got to do our last topic here before I let you go. Our power rankings for this past week. So again, I do want to emphasize that it is mostly based off of this past week. So again, there is some based on like, the overall standings, but a lot of it is based on this past week because I feel like that makes that funner. I feel like it makes it more fun. I think even like our last power rankings, we had like the Senators and the Penguins on there, and that's what made it a lot of fun. So we're going to continue with that here today. Jack, would you like to go first or would you like me to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay. All right. Who do you have at number 1 for this week's power rankings?
Number 1, the hated Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have to go with the Vegas Golden Knights. I hate to do it, but we have to. Vegas is 8-2-0 in their last 10. They have won 2 in a row. I'm not sure if they play tonight because again, we are recording this while games are going on.
They got the Sharks tonight, so
yeah,
they win.
The Sharks. So they can probably beat the Sharks if we're being completely honest. Number 2 for me, I'm going to go Toronto Maple Leafs. Maple Leafs have won 4 in a row. They are 7-3-0 in their last 10. If they win tonight against the Philadelphia Flyers, they would have won 5 straight games and have beaten the Flyers in 2 straight games. They kind of own us right now. But I'm going Toronto Maple Leafs at number 2. They have been terrific. Number 3, Jack, who are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm going to go Colorado.
Colorado, okay. So Colorado has won, 8-1-1 in their last 10. Yeah, I'll agree with that. 100%.
They got the Hawks tomorrow in Chicago. I think I'll be there. Not 100% sure, but I should be there.
See the big dog, Nate McKinnon.
Yes.
Next up for me then at number 4, I'm going to go – I'll stay with where I'm going. I'm going to go LA Kings. Los Angeles Kings. They've won 4 in a row. They're 6-2-2 in their last 10. They've been good. All right. Who do you got at number 5, Jack?
I'm going to go Carter's Jets.
Ooh, okay. Jets are 6-3-1 in their last 10. At number 6, I am going to go the Detroit Red Wings. The Red Wings have won 4 in a row. They are starting to climb up the standings. I think that they should be in our top 8. I would argue even like they should be higher. I feel like I could have put them at number 4, to be honest with you. But anyways, Jack, who do you have at number 7? Your last pick.
It's gonna be a shocker, but I got Montreal. They've been playing really good hockey.
No, I don't disagree with that. The Canadiens
Yeah.
have been playing really good. Are you okay? We'll talk about it after. Canadiens at number 7, and then finally my last pick. I'm gonna go with the Washington Capitals. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
Capitals at number 8. Okay, so our I want to make some changes, but our number 1 Vegas Golden Knights, number 2 Toronto Maple Leafs, number 3 Colorado Avalanche, number 4 LA Kings, number 5 Detroit Red Wings, number 5 Winnipeg Jets, number 6 Detroit Red Wings, number 7 Montreal Canadiens, and number 8 the Washington Capitals. Jack, I want to move Montreal up.
Okay.
I want to move Montreal up. I want to move them. I want to kind of swap them with the Jets.
Yeah. I mean, that last 10 record is pretty good.
Yeah, Jets, when you look in terms of the Jets are 6-3-1 in their last 10. Montreal's only lost twice in regulation in their last 10.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's fair. Any other things you want to change?
I think it's good.
Okay, all right. Final power rankings list. Number 1, the Vegas Golden Knights. Number 2, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Number 3, the Colorado Avalanche. Number 4, the LA Kings. Number 5, the Montreal Canadiens. Number 6, the Detroit Red Wings. Number 7, the Winnipeg Jets. And number 8, the Washington Capitals. I like that. That's our 4th week of the power rankings. Jack, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the NordCast. Like all the other times. Any final thoughts?
USA is on top of the World Juniors. We're a hockey country now.
Yes, we are. Congratulate. Oh, my God. My final thought, 51st state. That's what I'm going to say. 51st state. Carter would get so mad.
Savage.
If he was here. Oh, that's awesome. Anyways, that will do it for this episode of the NordCast. Thank you guys so much for watching or listening. And again, if you are watching on the NordCast Network YouTube channel, be sure to subscribe. We have some more content upcoming in the next couple of days. We're going to post individual videos as well as we go along. But that'll do it for us. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you guys so much for watching or listening to yet again another episode of the NordCast. If you enjoyed, please subscribe down below or follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you want to follow us on TikTok, we are at NordCast. If you want to follow us on Instagram or Twitter, follow at NordCast_. That'll do it for this episode. I'm Nordic. Thanks for listening from all the crew, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.